Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is Nedarim Daf Yud Beis. We will perhaps go back a couple of lines to Yud Aleph Amud Beis, 7 lines from the bottom of the Amud. Boy Rami Barcham. Here comes a question. Harei Alai ki basar zivchei shlamim la'achar zrikas damim ma'u. He points to a loaf of bread and he says, look, this to me will be considered like basar, flesh of a shlamim karban, post zrika, after they sprinkle a dam on the mizbeach, in which case that basar is permissible to practically all. Mahu, how would you treat this expression? Would it make this loaf of bread asr by way of neder or not? Question. He actually said it in this manner, either ka'amar b'hadein lishna. If he actually expressed it in this way, it should be like basar of shlamim after zerika. Well, there's no issue that behetera kamatvas, he was certainly referring to something which is mutar. All can have it. It's not something which is asr. How can you use that as a hatfas? How could you connect your item, your loaf of bread, to that and use that as a precedent for isur? It's actually not asr at all. It's mutar after zrikas damim. All can partake in that basar. There's no issue there. Ella rather, keep going. For instance, the machiz basar zivchei shlamim kamei. Before him we have a slab of basar from a shlamim karban after the zrika. And next to that he has a slab of basar, non-carbon, regular, permissible, ordinary, meat. V'amar zeh kazeh. And he says, look, this meat of mine should have the status of the other meat, of the shlamim meat. How would you treat this expression? The shlamim meat, in its current status, is mutar. After zrika, it's mutar. But originally, in its original form, meaning prior to zrika, it was asr b'achila. It was still undergoing the hakrava process. You couldn't partake in it. It was asr. So when I refer to a piece of basar shlamim, which happens to be a lachas zrika, am I simply making a reference to its current status, in which case it's mutar, or to its DNA, to its source, to its original form? And since it used to be asr, I'm relating to that aspect of it. How would you treat this? Be kari kan matvis. Am I attaching myself? Am I connecting this loaf of bread to its original state? In which case it was asr, and this loaf will be asr as well. Or am I simply referencing the current status, in which case it's mutar? Amar of a tashma. Noiser or pigel, back to the Mishnah. He applies the word noiser, the term pigel, to his loaf of bread. What happens? His loaf of bread becomes asr because these forms of expression, noiser or pigel, which are carbon-related statuses, they represent carbon because it's a manifestation of kedushas ha-carbon, which can have a noiser facet, a pigel facet. And therefore, that is considered having applied kedushas neder, which relates to karbanos. Din neder, iser neder, which relates to kedushas karbanos, to this, loaf of bread. That's the Mishnah. Asks the Gemara 1 second. How do you get to noiser? Noiser means he failed to actually eat it, and it was left over beyond the expiration date, which means it was roi lachila, which means it was after zerika. Let's focus on noiser, says the Ran. The noiser status only happens with a carbon that underwent zerika. So how can you use that as a catalyst for isur neder? After zerika, it's no longer something which carries neder on it. Look, the neder was, here's the carbon, I'm going to be makriv it. He's done that. It's behind him. He did the shchita, he did the kabbalah, he did the halach, he did the zrika. The neder is over. It's finished. Right? Now it's mutar b'achila. So why would that be considered something to use as a source for your neder? Neder is over. Now the Ran points out, although a carbon, even after zrika, still has limitations and restrictions. A fellow who is unclean, a tummy, can't take it. Sometimes only a kohen can eat that part, a specific chelik of the animal. But says the Ran, these aren't neder-related isurim. Your neder is over. As soon as you've done the hakrava, you've finished the hakrava process, you've done the zrika, your commitment has been fulfilled. Now, all the new halachas that come, these are carbon-related halachas that Hashem, so to speak, the Torah sort of tacks onto the carbon. But it's unrelated to the neder. It's no longer neder-related restrictions. The neder is fulfilled. It's done with. It was neskayim, by way of the akrava, by way of the zrikas dam. So how could the Mishnah say that by saying noiser and relating noiser to your loaf of bread, that expresses something which has an isser neder? Noiser is after zrika. Neder is long gone. You can't bring a raya from this Mishnah. You were trying to bring a raya. Oh, apparently. One always refers to its original status, to its bikare, to the past status, to the origin, to the DNA, the essence. And since that noiser, although currently is no longer a neder-related item, but it was once a neder-related item before Zrika, so you're trying to prove from there that bikare kamatvis. You go back to its original state. Go back to the source, to the root. No. B'noiser shel oila was speaking noisar meat of a carbon oila. The hakrav of the oila is not done, is not completed, is not fulfilled until you burn the entire thing on the mizbeach. Right? So when you have leftovers there, the neder is still intact. The neder has not yet been fulfilled, has not yet expired, has not yet been removed from this basar. So when it comes to an oila, even after zerika, the neder is still valid, is still intact, is still active, in which case you can use that as a precedent, as a way to be matfis your neder. Amalei, so he responded, Im kain lisni kibasar oila. If so, why would the Mishnah not simply state that he's being matfis, he's making reference to basar oila? Why go to noisar oila? Every basar of oila before burning on the mizbeach is still a neder related item. The neder is still active until streif on the mizbeach. So it's asar mishum neder. Use that as a precedent. Why go to noisar of oila? The answer is, you're right. Loi mi baye kamar, needless to say. Loi mi baye basar oila. It goes without saying that ordinary basar oila, used as a means of making a neder, the asr, of course, it creates isr, the carbon kamatvis. Because when he makes mention of basar oila, it's something which is a manifestation of neder. It's something which you can bring through neder. I can donate an oila, I can promise, I can commit to bringing an oila. The oila is an expression of neder. So when I use that as a point of reference to my current neder, it works. Hatfas, I connect it, I relate to that, I draw from that. So basar oila after zrika is still a neder-related item, as we just explained, because it's still in the midst of the akrava process, and the neder is still active on that. So it goes without saying that it's valid. The chiddush is noisar upil the oila tzricha. The chiddush is when I refer to the isser element of an oila. Something went wrong, something went awry. It turned into noisar, into pigel. That's a chiddush. What's the chiddush? Perhaps I can say, ki isser noisar, ki isser pigel. when I refer to the noiser or pigul of oila, it's not your standard oila. I'm referring to an isur element, which was now applied to that oila. And let's keep in mind, the isur element I didn't generate through a neder. That's something that the Torah puts on the carbon when it becomes nicer, when it becomes pigul, as the Ran just explained before. We mentioned it in the previous Gemara as well. So when I'm trying to make a neder today, based on a previous neder, through the method of hatfasa, connection, perhaps relating it to an isser aspect of a carbon, doesn't do it. Perhaps it's as though I'm relating to something which is completely usr, like a nevela, treifa. It's not good for making a neder, because those isurim were not generated through expression, through dibur. Here as well, noiser of oila. Well, the noiser aspect of the oila had nothing to do with me, the donor. That's something that came later, by default, because it was nicer, right? So perhaps v'loi mitzvah cannot be used to make isurim today. It's not a neder-related issue, because in order to make hatfas, you need two conditions. A, you make reference to something which is asr. B, asr by way of neder. So the basar oil, even after zrika, we explained, is still neder-related. The neder is still active. But when it's also noiser, and I refer to the noiser title of that basar, perhaps I just distorted it. I just went off track because I related to the Isser aspect, which is not nether related. Kamashwan, the Chiddush is yes. It works as well, because after all, it's one and the same. It's Basar Oila, which is nicer. So true, the Isser nicer per se wasn't generated by the nether, but it's riding on top of the Basar Oila, which is a nether related item, and therefore it's all one and the same, and it can be used for Atfasa. Meis Vei comes a kasha. We're going to try to bring a raya, basically, to the idea of the ikarika matvis. Right? So you're telling me, no. You don't go back to the root. You don't go back to the source. I'll prove to you otherwise. Eizehu isser ha'amar b'Torah. Says the Brisa. What is an example of isser neder in the Torah? Omar, he says like this. Hareini, I am committing myself to the following neder. So actually, it sounds like a shvur, but the Ran on the Beis already, made mention of this Gemara. He says, the Gemara is, lav dafka. We're speaking that he actually expressed it in an item-based, commitment, a nether-based commitment. Bottom line, this fellow commits to refrain from basar and yayin. Kiyam shemeis b'yaviv. So what happened was his father passed away. Let's call it year 1, okay? And he was neither on that year or the next year on the same, on the yard site. No wine, no meat. He made a nether on that day. His father's passing occurred on a Sunday, which happened to be the first day of Nisan. That's how the Iran explains it. Others explain it a bit differently, but just keep it simple. It was on a specific day of the month, or perhaps even a specific day of the week. The Rush says you don't need a week, because a week has no relevance when it comes to yard site. A day of the week. But in any case, the Ran does present it like that, so we'll just go with the Ran. Father passes away on a Sunday, day 1 of Nisan. Okay? He turned that day into a day of restriction. The Rush says it's a derech to be mitzvah, to express anguish on such a day. Okay. 10 years later, year 10, he says, look, today happens to be a Sunday as well. Lo and behold, it's also first day of Nisan. Wow, perfect match. Mamash the yard site. I want to follow that pattern. Today will have the same status as the other Sunday. He doesn't really, clearly relate to what he's talking about. Sunday of, year one, which was turned into a neder. Today is like Sunday. It almost sounds like he's trying to do something. He's trying to make today usher as well. Trying to copy that Sunday way back when and bring it over to today as well. Problem is, he didn't express it clearly. He left it for us to interpret. So he says, like that day that my father died. So it's third person, but it's referring to himself. Or or like the day that his Rebbe passes away. Like the day that the Gedalia was killed, and Mefarshim say he was actually killed on Rosh Hashanah, but the fast day is Tzom Gedalia Gimel B'Tishrei, so he's referring to Gimel B'Tishrei, which is a day that we commemorate his tragedy. Or I will treat today like Kiyem Shirisi Yerushalayim B'Chabana, like that time when I was exposed to the Churban Yerushalayim for the first time, on which I fasted, on which I refrained from wine and meat. V'amar Shmuel, who was speaking, provided Shenadar B'Isayim, that in fact, that day way back, that Sunday, Aleph Nisan, which was the day of his father's passing, was actually a neder, a day which was committed to neder, meaning this restriction was imposed on that day as well, and this is a point of reference being used for today. So year 1 was neder, but between year 1 and year 10, no nedarim. Throughout. No Sundays with the nedarim of wine and meat. Comes year 10, he decides, okay, today, Sunday, Aleph Nisan, will be like the day of Meis Beirav, will be like the other Sunday, he says. Like the other Sunday. Which Sunday? Year 1, which is a neder day, or year 2, 3, 4, 5, which had no neder. And what does the Brisa say? It works. You can use this to activate a neder today. No basar, no yain. Hey Chidami, what are we speaking about? Lav kigoin dekoy b'chad b'shava. Apparently we're speaking that today is a Sunday. Sunday, Aleph Nisan, so it perfectly matches all the elements of that first yahrzeit, of that day of passing. The Meis B'Avo, which is, an exact match to the day of his father's passing. And it's trying to emulate that neder of that original day. Although we have many, numerous Sundays in between the Hatera, which were perfectly mutter. So who's to say that he's referring to that original day, the day of his father's passing, which was Asr? Perhaps he's referring to the other Sundays in between, which are mutter. Ukatani Asr in the Brisa says that it's Asr Shema. We have a Rai B'ikur Matvis. You go back to the original. So again, his father passed away Sunday, Aleph Nisan, year 1. He decided to turn that day into a Yom of Tsar, no Basar, no Yain. 10 years later, it's a Sunday, Aleph Nisan. He says, today will be like the other Sunday. Which Sunday? We don't know. There are many Sundays which were mutter, but the original Sunday, meaning the Sunday that has meaning in his eyes, so to speak. So in the context of this type of expression, we assume perhaps he is going back to the first that first Sunday of his father's passing. That allows us to trigger their neder. We say Bikari Kamatvis. He's going back to the first Sunday, which was Asr. And the Rosh says perhaps he's going back to Sunday before his father's passing, where there was no Isser. He says, we don't say that. You see, he's trying to impose an Isser. Let's assume that's what he meant. So you see, Bikar Kaimatvis. When you have a choice to look at a heter aspect, go back to the original, to the source, to the first, the precedent. You do that to create a neder. You assume that he's trying to do that. He's trying to make an isser. So it's a right to our Shaila. Says the Gemara, no. The Shmuel Hachi Itmar, Shmuel actually said it a bit differently. Omar Shmuel, there were no years in between free of neder. Every single day which matched the day of his father's passing was a day with neder. Year 1, 2, 3, all the way through till year 10. There's no question about his intention. Today is like that Sunday, of course, like any Sunday of his father's passing. Sunday, Aleph Nisan, which had a neder. That in fact, there was a string, a chain of days with neder. All the Sundays on Aleph Nisan from then till now were all neder activated, in which case there's no question as to his intention. Amar Avinu Tashmai comes another right to our Shaila. A fellow says this food item will be kechales aren, like the portion of dough which is separated and give it to a kohen, chala, uke trumase, like the truma separated from the granary, given to the kohen, mutter. That does not trigger a neder. The question is why. Those things are usher to us. A non-kohen may not partake, and those things were created by expression, by dibur. Why isn't that considered? Hatfasa b'davar neder. Everybody asks kasha, the Ran, the Rosh, Taisvis. So the Ran says, even though Kriyas Shem makes the Isser, but remember, it's not usher to everybody, only to Yisrael, to the non-kohen. That's not called davar haneder. Because neder typically, when you make something hegdish, it's also to everybody. So here it's different. It doesn't have the same status as davar haneder. The Rosh says a beautiful, interesting thing. He says, when I separate teruma from my, pile, am I generating isser? You would think yes. No, says the Rosh. No, says Taisus. The truma was already there in potential. I'm just extracting it. I'm choosing it. I'm separating it. So actually, when I separate truma, instead of looking at it like I'm making isser, I'm actually making heter, because I'm being matter the rest by removing the isser portion from within it. Isn't that beautiful? So it's not called an isser generated by neder. The neder is simply a means of separation, of dividing the truma from the rest. But the isser truma per se is just there, naturally there from the get-go. And therefore, you can't use that as a precedent for neder. So chalas aren, truma not. Says the Gemara, let's make a dig. What else is on your potential list? Haka trumas lachmei toida asr. So the one of the 10 chalas of the toida carbon that you give to the kohen can be used as atfasa, because that's a carbon, a davar haneder. Question: when do you give the trumas lachmei toida to the kohen? Typically after zrika. Well, after zrika there's no longer neder. As we explained before, the neder is over once you've done the zrika. You've fulfilled your obligation to bring the carbon. But trumas lachmei toida lachas zrika is damimi. How can you use that as a neder? Oh, bi karika matvis. Going back to the source, you're looking deep within that item and you're saying, well, this thing in the past was asr, i.e. before zrika, and therefore it suffices for our purposes. It's a raya that you go to the original status rather than the current status. Amos, says the Gemara, no, let's make a different diuk. Regular truma is not davar haneder, but instead of going to taida as a diuk, ema ketrumas halishka asr. The portion that they remove from the chamber which houses the machzah shekels, that's certainly something donated, that davar haneder. That can be used for a neder. Aval, says the Gemara, but trumas lachmei toida my mutter, but utilizing lachmei toida as your precedent wouldn't work. Listni lachmei toida koshken trumasa. Then the Brisa should have said that. Instead of just saying truma can't be used, truma is rather simple, straightforward. It's an Isser Torah, it's not a davar haneder. Say better. Lachmei toida cannot be used, because after zrika it's no longer a davar haneder. And certainly we would understand on our own that truma can't be used as well. Why would the Brisa take the lesser chiddush rather than express a bigger chiddush? You're right, the Kamashmalon trumas lachmei toida trumasa, you're right. Actually, when the Brisa says trumasa, it means all forms of truma. Regular truma, trumas lachmei toida, cannot be used for a neder. For different reasons, of course. Truma because it's not a davar haneder period, and Trumas Lachmei Toida because it's after Zrika, we're assuming. In which case, the neder aspect is totally gone. Yiboy same another teretz. You're right. Only regular truma cannot be used, but trumas lachmei toida can be used as a precedent for a davar another. What do you mean? It's after zrika. It's no longer a neder related item. Well, guess what? Perhaps he gave it to the kohen before zrika. Trumas lachmei toida nami koydem zrika damim. Typically, you don't do it before zrika, but maybe this time he gave it before he did the zrika on the carbon toida, as we find in a similar halacha explained by Rav Tuvi Bar Kisna. For instance, he could have even given it to the kohen. Separated it from the rest in its dough form. Right? So we see that, sometimes they get started on the truma aspect way early in the process. And perhaps he gave it to the kohen before zrika as well. So halacha is that, of course, the chalos toida only become kaddish, become considered lachmei toida after the shchita, and the shchita only affects the lechem if the lechem is already baked. So the process is like this: first they form the dough, then you have to bake it, then you do the shchita, which is mekadesh the lechem, and then you do the zrika, and you can give it to the kohen either before or after zrika. So this time he gave it before the zrika. For instance, he separated the kohen's portion while it was still dough. Typically, you take the 4 variations of dough and create 10 chales per variation for a total of 40. Suppose he didn't. He just made 4 jumbo chales, 1 per type. You're yaitze. Although the pasuk says 40 la mitzvah. It's a mitzvah, it's preferred. But b'diavad you can do 4 jumbos. How can you do that? Remember, he has to take off a portion for the kohen. So perhaps he just took one of the 4 jumbos and gave it to the kohen, and that sort of accounted for everything. So that one bread to the kohen was moitzi everybody else. You can't do that. You have to actually give him a tenth of each type. But Tanan echad, the word echad tells you mikol carbon has to be a portion of each carbon. No, it says echad mikol carbon in the pasuk, 1 per type. Shalital mikol chaver, you can't take from one type and exempt the other. Perhaps you'll say the shakal prusam kol chad b'chad. He sliced a piece and gave it to the kohen. A slice off each jumbo challah. You can't give him slices. But Tanan echad means shalital prusam. You can't give him a broken piece. So how could you ever have 4 jumbo chales and still account for the kohen's portion? The only way is if he did it in its dough form. The Ran explains. He made 4 globs of dough, 1 per type, divided each glob into 10 parts, separated 1 out of those 10, put on the side, that was going to be baked and given to the kohen. Took the remaining 9 portions of each respective, variety, clumped them back together, and baked it into a jumbo bread. There you go. So you have 4 jumbo breads, and you have a small, bread for the kohen. 1 small, little roll per variation. So you have a total of 4 little ones and 4 big ones. So you've taken a tenth of each min. You haven't broken it apart. You have echad. It's not a slice, because it's a fully baked roll. So you've accounted for all the requirements. The shakal chadam chametz, you have 1 roll from the chametz for the kohen, v'chadam in chales, 1 from the other part, v'chadam in rekikim, the other type, v'chadam in revucha. So the question was, again, how can you use chales lachmei toida as a precedent for neder? It's after zrika? No. It so happens that in this instance, he created lachmei toida before zrika, when it still relates to the neder, and it's called over hanadar. Perhaps this very question of whether you look at the current status of an item or its original state is a machlekes tanai. How are you like a b'char? He says this, loaf of bread, this piece of meat, to me is treated like a b'char, which is a carbon, which is a davar hanadar, and can be used as a hatfasa. Rabbi Yaakov Eiser, Rabbi Yehuda Mater. Rabbi Yaakov says, sure, a neder, right there. Rabbi Yehuda says it's not a neder. Hey Chidami, what are we speaking about? He's comparing his loaf of bread to a bechor before zrika. Well, of course, that's a bona fide davar another. My time of demand shari. Why would anybody make it mutter? If he's relating to the bechor after zrika, neder is over. My time of demand also. Why would anybody make it aser? Elalav the machas basa bechor. Oh, apparently, this is the same case that we're speaking about. You have basar bechor sitting there, bechor after zrika. You have another slab of meat next to it. V'amani says, zekazeh. I'm treating this like that. Like that? 1 second. That bechor is already after zrika. It's no longer davar another. It lost its neder title. Or shall we say, well, it was once davar another. In its original state, it was a davar another before zrika. That's the machlekes. You look at its current state, or its original state, which is machlekes tanaim, matching our, two sides of our shayla. Shall we say that? V'tanai. And then we'll fall back from that and explain the Bryce a bit differently. Be'ezus Hashem, we'll continue tomorrow. The bottom line is, we left off with a question, which we haven't really concluded on. So he has basar of zivchei shlamim, which is after zrika. He has another piece of basar next to it. He says, well, I want this basar to be like this. That's all he says. Because if he would actually say it out, I want it to be like basar post-zrika, of course, there would be no question that there's no neder applied there. If he would say clearly it's like basar before zrika, that's neder related. He didn't express himself clearly. This is like this. And this thing here happens to be after zrika. So it's mutter. Or no, do you look at its original state? It's coming from Isra. It was based on Isra. It was coming from Neder, which brought about its current reality. And that's enough to trigger a Neder. We attempted to bring a ray from Noiser. Well, we said Noiser is Oila. Oila is always Neder until it's burnt. We tried to bring a ray from the yard site. Well, all the yard sites were Aser. There is no heter aspect. We tried to bring a raya from Chalis Toida. No, that's Kaidim Zrika. And we tried to hinge it on a machlekes regarding Bechor. And we'll see the rest, Be'ezus Hashem, tomorrow. Be well and much hatzlachat to you.